They were supposed to pick me up, she mumbled, snot running down her face. They didn't come. Damn. Daniel hated bus stops. This kid, Lily, all of 7, was proper wrecked. His boy, Evan, offered her his juice box. Decent kid, that Evan. But Daniel knew, seeing the flicker in her eyes, this wasn't just about being stood up. Something was wrong. Mark Henderson wrong. Yeah, that. Mark Henderson from high school, the one who made Daniel's life a living hell. Now there he was, Lily's dad, radiating menace. He snarled, "She doesn't need your pity." But I saw Lily's face. She desperately needed someone. What Henderson didn't know? Poking the bear always backfires. He has no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. They were supposed to pick me up, she mumbled, snot running down her face. They didn't come. Damn. Daniel hated bus stops. This kid, Lily, all of 7, was proper wrecked. His boy, Evan, offered her his juice box. Decent kid, that Evan. But Daniel knew, seeing the flicker in her eyes, this wasn't just about being stood up. Something was wrong. Mark Henderson wrong. Yeah, that row. Mark Henderson from high school, the one who made Daniel's life a living hell. Now there he was, Lily's dad, radiating menace. He snarled, "She doesn't need your pity." But I saw Lily's face. She desperately needed someone. What Henderson didn't know? Poking the bear always backfires. He has no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as Daniel knelt, his jeans crunching on the asphalt. "Hey, Lily," he said softly, careful not to spook her. "My name's Daniel. This is my son, Evan. Everything okay?" Lily just shook her head, a silent waterfall of tears tracing paths through the grime on her cheeks. Her backpack, practically the size of her, lay slumped beside her like a discarded friend. He glanced around. The usual after-school bustle had died down, leaving the bus stop feeling desolate. "They forgot me," she choked out, her voice barely a whisper. Evan, bless his heart, didn't hesitate. He extended his juice box. "Here," he offered. "It's grape." Lily's gaze flickered between Evan and the juice, a moment of hesitation before she accepted it with a small, trembling hand. The simple gesture seemed to crack the shell of her fear just a little. "I'm Lily," she murmured, finally meeting Daniel's gaze. A name, a starting point. "Well, Lily," Daniel said, his voice warm and reassuring, "we can't just leave you here. How about we walk you home? It's getting late." As they walked, Lily clutched Evan's hand like a lifeline. The silence was thick with unspoken anxieties. Daniel noticed how Lily flinched at loud noises, her eyes darting nervously at every passing car. It wasn't just the fear of being forgotten. It was something more profound, a deeper unease that settled like a stone in Daniel's gut. Each block they walked, Lily slowed slightly, her small frame seeming to shrink with every step. As they rounded the corner onto a street lined with modest houses, Lily's pace faltered completely in front of a small white house with peeling paint. "This is it," she whispered, her grip on Evan's hand tightening so hard his knuckles turned white. A single flickering porch light cast long, distorted shadows. "I don't want him to be mad." The front door creaked open, and a figure emerged, silhouetted against the dim light. Daniel's blood turned to ice. It was him, Mark Henderson. Older, harder, but instantly recognizable. The same sneer playing on his lips, the same arrogant tilt to his head. Back in high school, Mark had made it his mission to make Daniel's life miserable. Now here he stood, Lily's father, and the years of repressed anger and resentment surged to the surface. "What the hell are you doing here, freak?" Mark spat, his eyes narrowing as he took in Daniel and Evan. The voice hadn't changed either, still dripping with disdain. Daniel forced himself to stay calm, reminding himself that Lily was watching. "Lily was alone at the bus stop. We brought her home." Mark's jaw tightened. He reached out and yanked Lily towards him with a force that made her stumble. "She doesn't need your charity," he snarled. "I told her to wait. I had things to do." Daniel's fist clenched, but he kept his voice even. "She's a child, Mark." She was scared. He saw a flicker of something dark in Mark's eyes, a flash of barely controlled rage that sent a shiver down his spine. "Get inside," Mark barked at Lily, his voice like a whip. Lily scurried past him, but before she disappeared into the house, she turned back to Daniel, her eyes filled with a desperate plea for help, a silent cry that echoed the loneliness he had felt as a kid. Evan tugged on Daniel's sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, his voice trembling. "She doesn't look safe." Daniel's heart ached. He knew he couldn't walk away. Not this time. "I'll call child services," Daniel stated, his voice low but firm. "If she ends up alone like that again—" Mark merely smirked, leaning against the doorframe. His eyes were venomous. "Run home, Danny boy," Mark taunted him. "Run home and cry to mommy." He refused to give Mark the satisfaction of a reaction. "She was scared," he repeated. "You should be ashamed." With a final, lingering look at the house, Daniel grabbed Evan's hand and started back toward the bus stop. He knew he couldn't force anything, but Lily's face haunted him. That kid was in trouble. Deep trouble. He hadn't seen Mark Henderson since high school, but some things never changed. It felt like a stone in his stomach. Daniel was still wrestling with these thoughts hours later as he and Evan arrived back at their apartment. His mind was reeling. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that Lily's tears weren't just about being forgotten. Hesitated, then answered. A small, trembling voice whispered through the line. "Mr. Daniel, it's me. It's Lily. Please, can you come?" Daniel's heart lurched. "Where are you, sweetheart?" Her words tumbled out between sobs. "In the park near school, I ran away. I'm scared." Without hesitation, Daniel grabbed his jacket and sprinted out the door. He knew this was bigger than anything he'd faced as a single dad. This wasn't just about kindness anymore. This was about saving a child from the same kind of abandonment he'd once felt. And as he sped toward the park, gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled determination, he whispered to himself, "Not this time. I won't let her down." The night air was sharp, cutting into Daniel's lungs as he raced through the park. The dim street lamps threw weak circles of light across the playground, the swings squeaking in the wind. His eyes darted from shadow to shadow until he spotted her. Lily curled up on a bench, knees pulled to her chest, her backpack clutched tight like it was the only thing she owned. "Lily," Daniel called softly, trying not to scare her. Her head snapped up, eyes wide and wet. When she saw him, her face crumpled with relief. She leapt off the bench and ran straight into his arms, sobbing into his chest. "I didn't know who else to call," she choked out. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, steady and warm. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. You're safe now." For a moment, it felt like the world stopped. The broken little girl finding a father's embrace she'd never had. But Daniel knew the storm wasn't over. It was only beginning. Back at his apartment, Evan sat on the couch with wide eyes as Lily shuffled inside. She looked so small, clutching her backpack straps as if she expected someone to snatch her away. "Dad, is she staying here?" Evan whispered. Daniel crouched in front of Lily. "You can stay tonight, all right. No one's going to hurt you here. We'll figure this out in the morning." Lily nodded, though her eyes kept darting to the door. When Evan handed her a blanket and a cookie from the jar, she almost cried again. Simple kindness, something she should have always had, seemed foreign to her. Later that night, as the kids slept side by side on the pull-out couch, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. The note she'd given him, "Please don't leave me here," burned in his pocket. He knew he couldn't keep her hidden. If Mark found out, he'd explode. And if child services stepped in without proof, Lily might end up right back in that house. Daniel stared at the clock, the weight of fatherhood pressing heavy on his shoulders. He remembered his own childhood, how no one ever stood up for him when he was the poor kid everyone laughed at. He'd promised himself that Evan would grow up with a father who never looked away from injustice. That promise stretched further now. Lily needed him too. Morning came with a pounding at the door. Daniel's chest tightened instantly. He opened it to find Mark standing there, face twisted with rage. "You think you can steal my daughter?" Mark barked, shoving his way inside. His eyes darted to the couch where Lily cowed behind Evan. "Get your things. We're leaving." Lily whimpered and clutched Evan's hand. Daniel stepped between them, planting himself like a wall. "She called me. Mark. She was scared. She didn't feel safe." Mark sneered. She's my kid, not your problem. Daniel's voice was calm but cold. Children aren't possessions. She's not a trophy you won at some game. For a moment, Mark's smirk faltered, but then he leaned in, his voice low and venomous. You always wanted what I had, didn't you? The girls, the cars, the easy life. Now you're trying to play daddy to my daughter. Pathetic. Daniel didn't flinch. He learned that real strength wasn't fists or insults. It was endurance. He pulled out the crumpled note Lily had given him and held it up. She wrote this. You want to pretend everything's fine? Tell me why your daughter begs strangers not to send her home. The color drained from Mark's face, but he recovered quickly, snarling. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not, Daniel said, his voice sharp as glass. But the state will, and the school, and every person who's seen her cry alone at that bus stop. Lily peeked out from behind him, trembling. For the first time, her voice rose above a whisper. I don't want to go back. The room went still. The weight of her words hung heavy, undeniable. Mark's fist clenched, but he must have seen something in Daniel's eyes, something unshakable, because instead of lunging forward, he backed away. This isn't over, he spat, slamming the door behind him. Daniel locked it immediately, his breath coming hard. He turned to Lily, who was shaking like a leaf. He knelt down and brushed her hair gently from her face. You're safe here. He's not taking you back. Her lip quivered. Promise. Daniel's chest tightened. Promise. The following days blurred with tension. Daniel contacted Child Services, presented the note, and even spoke to Lily's teacher, who admitted she'd noticed signs of neglect, but hadn't known what to do. It was a battle of paperwork, interviews, and endless waiting. But Daniel refused to give up. Through it all, kindness blossomed in his tiny apartment. Lily laughed for the first time when Evan shared his toy cars. She asked timidly if she could help stir pancake batter. She started humming while brushing her hair. Little glimpses of the childhood she'd been denied seeping through. One night, as Daniel tucked them both into the couch bed, Lily whispered, Mr. Daniel, why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Daniel's throat tightened. He smoothed the blanket over her. Because someone should have helped me once, and they didn't. I won't make that mistake again. Her small hand reached out, clutching his. Thank you. It was a simple word, but it anchored him, made all the sleepless nights worth it. Weeks later, the caseworker arrived with the official decision. Lily would not be returning to Mark's custody. The relief that washed over her face when she heard the news made Daniel's chest ache. She threw her arms around him, whispering, I knew you'd keep your promise. Mark, furious, tried to lash out publicly, spreading rumors, digging up Daniel's past mistakes. But Daniel didn't waver. The man who once mocked him in high school now stood exposed, stripped of power. And Daniel, he'd become something stronger than any insult Mark ever hurled. He'd become the protector Lily had needed all along. The final evening of that long battle, Daniel sat on the porch with Evan and Lily. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft gold. Evan leaned against him, tired from play, while Lily rested her head on his other shoulder. You know what? Daniel said softly. Families aren't always the ones we're born with. Sometimes they're the ones we find. Lily looked up at him with tear-bright eyes and whispered, Can I call you Dad too? Daniel's heart swelled. He kissed the top of her head, voice breaking. You already do, sweetheart. And as the night settled around them, Daniel knew this wasn't just a story of chance. It was redemption for Lily, for Evan, and maybe even for himself. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge against cruelty isn't anger. It's love strong enough to rewrite a child's future,